Hey guys, and welcome to the end of course test. So the purpose of this test is to see how much you can remember from all of the various topics covered in our previous live online classes. Now you'll find the test in the description of this video, and in this video I'm going to go through the answers. So let's go. So the first part of the test is articles. You guys have four options here. The indefinite articles, a or an. The definite article, the or no article. So the first sentence, Cairo is located on River Nile. So hopefully you guys remembered that for rivers we use the River Nile. My uncle is in prison because he wasn't paying his taxes. So prison is an example of an institution. Your uncle's there because he committed a crime. He didn't pay his taxes. So we've got the institution. We're talking about its normal use. Therefore, we don't use an article in this situation. Some other examples of institutions are hospital, university. So again, for these words, when we're talking about their normal purpose, we don't need to use an article. Don't forget to bring umbrella with you. So umbrella, it's a singular countable noun. We need the indefinite article here, but it begins with a vowel sound. Umbrella. So we must use an. Okay, difficult sentence here. So Mount Everest is in Himalayas. So Mount Everest is an individual mountain. We do not use articles for individual mountains. However, the Himalayas, it's a range of mountains, more than one mountain. And for mountain ranges, we actually do need to use the definite article. So Mount Everest is in the Himalayas. And finally, who was first man on the moon? So for ranking and ordering phrases, first, second, third, fourth, we use the. Who was the first man on the moon? Now guys, if you feel like you need a little bit more study or revision in this area, remember the video is available in the playlist on the Erin YouTube channel, so feel free to go back and check that out, where we go into the rules in much more detail. And the same is true for all of the topics on this test. So part 2, different types of nouns. So you may remember in our very first live online class, we looked at countable nouns, uncountable nouns, plural nouns, and also collective nouns, and the different ways we use each of them, and the rules accompanying each of them. So here you guys needed to choose the correct option or decide if both are possible. Let's have a look at the first sentence. Jack's clothes look or looks really expensive. So clothes, it's a plural noun. A plural noun, it must take a plural verb. Jack's clothes look. They look really expensive. Okay. Economics is or are a really interesting subject. So you may have remembered, if a word ends with ICS, it's most likely an uncountable noun. So economics is an uncountable noun. With uncountable nouns, we always use a singular verb. So economics is a really interesting subject. I need to buy new furniture for my home. Furniture, it's also uncountable. We cannot use the indefinite article with uncountable nouns, so the correct answer here is some. She's done a lot of researches or research for the project. Okay, research once again is an uncountable noun. In English, we cannot pluralize it, so the correct answer here is she's done a lot of research for the project. And finally, the airline's crew works very hard to make sure everybody is comfortable. So, crew. Now we're not talking about an individual here. The noun crew, it describes a group or a collective. So this is a collective noun, And with these types of nouns, we can actually use a singular or a plural verb. So some more examples are family, team, band. They're all collective nouns, and they can take a singular or a plural verb. So the correct answer down here is both. There is one exception, however, so you may remember the exception is the word police. So even though police describes a group, it always takes a plural verb. So the police are very helpful, for example. Okay, part 3. Everybody's favorite thing about English, prepositions. So here we were just looking at in, on, and at. So we know we can use these 3 prepositions to talk about location, but we can also use them to talk about time. So they can cause a lot of confusion amongst non-native speakers. Let's see how you guys did with this exercise. He was born 22nd of the 12th, 1990. So here we have a date, and with dates we use on. Sarah usually has her lunch 12 p.m. So this time it's a time on the clock. We must use at. People like to spend time with their families. Christmas. So here we're not talking specifically about Christmas Day. We're talking about the period of time, Christmas or the festival. And with festivals, we use at. Now, if the sentence had said Christmas Day, then we would use the preposition on, because for days we use on. Festivals we use at. The light, the kitchen ceiling isn't working. So ceiling. Ceiling is an example of a surface. For surfaces, we use the preposition on. And finally, Sean isn't home right now. So home. This takes the preposition at. Sean isn't at home right now. He's the cinema. Okay, so cinema. It's a place in the town. For places in the town like cinema, bank, museum, we use the preposition at. However, cinema, it's also a building. It's a closed space. And for closed spaces, we can use the preposition in. So in this case, both are possible. I guess it really depends. Do we know that Sean is actually in the building, inside the cinema? Then we can use in. However, if we just know that's the place he's gone, it's better to use at in this situation. Alright, part 4 is future forms. You may remember in one of our lessons we looked at the difference between the future perfect and the future continuous. So in this exercise, you've got a verb and you need to put that verb in the correct form. Should it be in the future perfect form or the future continuous form? So let's have a look at the first example here. Sally leaves home at 8 a.m. It takes her 1 hour to drive to work. At 8:30 tomorrow, Sally to work. So if it takes her an hour to drive to work, then at 8:30 the action of driving will still be happening. It will be in progress. And for an action that will be in progress at a time in the future, we must use our future continuous structure. So hopefully you guys remembered will plus be plus gerund, or the ing form of the verb. So in this case, Sally will be driving to work. Mark is writing 1 chapter each week for his new book. In 4 weeks, Mark, so if it's 1 chapter a week, that means in 4 weeks, the action will be completed. It will be finished. He'll have written 4 chapters. The film starts at 6 o'clock. I'll arrive half an hour late. When I arrive, the film, okay, so if the film starts at 6, I'll arrive half an hour later, then the action of the film starting is already happened. This action will be finished at this time in the future. And 4 actions that will be finished at a time in the future, we must use our future perfect form. So like we've seen above, the future perfect is will plus have plus the past participle of the verb. So in this case, the film will have started. Alright, really good. Scientists believe that humans Mars by the end of the century. So when we use the word by, what this actually means here is at the latest time. So maybe this action will have been completed before the end of the century, but at the very latest, it will be completed by the end of the century. So again, we're talking about an action that will be completed at a time in the future. It's our future perfect form. So scientists believe that humans will have visited Mars by the end of this century. And finally, Tom's assignment is due on Monday morning. Don't call him at the weekend because his assignment. So if his assignment is due on Monday, he's going to be very busy with his assignment over the weekend. So if you call him at the weekend, the action of his assignment of doing it will be in progress. He will be doing his assignment. Now, of course, here you could also use the contracted form. He'll be doing his assignment instead of he will be doing. Alright. Next up, we had our narrative tenses. So hopefully you guys remember our lesson where we looked at using the past simple, the past continuous, the past perfect, and also the past perfect continuous. And when we tell a story, we usually use a combination of these different structures. So the first sentence here, by the time we arrived at the party, most people had already left. So think about this one. By the time we arrived, it's an action in the past, but now we're talking about an earlier action. So before we arrived, people left. So by the time we arrived at the party, most people had already left. So to talk about an earlier past action, we use the past perfect, and our form here is had plus past participle. Now the already is just emphasizing that this action has happened before we arrived. Okay, while I on my computer, it's suddenly working. So while I was working on my computer, it suddenly stopped working. So what we have here is the past continuous, while I was working. So this is used to describe a longer action in the past. Then we have the shorter interrupting action. It stopped working. For the shorter interrupting action, we use the past simple. So while I was working on my computer, it stopped working. Okay. When I left the pub, it was snowing. So in this case, was snowing is the longer action in the past, and leaving the pub is the shorter action. 23. I picked up my bag, put on my coat, and left the house. So here we've got consecutive past actions, one action after the other. And to express this, we just need to use the past simple. So that means as soon as I got on the bus, again, it's consecutive action. So I picked up my bag, then I put on my coat, then I left the house, then I got on the bus. Past simple, past simple, past simple, past simple. However, as soon as I got on the bus, I realized that I hadn't switched off the oven. So here again, we've got an earlier past action, so we need to use our past perfect. I hadn't switched off the oven. This happened before I left the house. Okay, great job. Part 6 was conditionals. So in our online lesson, we looked at the zero conditional, the first conditional, the second conditional, and also the third conditional. And number 1 here, you guys had a choice. So I'll pay for dinner if I'll have enough money or if I have enough money. So this is actually the first conditional. You've got if plus the present and then a future form. So I'll pay for dinner if plus present if I have enough money. And you guys will remember that we used the first conditional to talk about a probable or likely situation in the future. Number 2, you can be fined. So fined when you have to pay money as a punishment if you aren't wearing or won't be wearing a seatbelt. So this situation, it's not true at one particular moment. I mean, this is a fact. This is always true. So for facts and for things that are always true, we can use the zero conditional, which is if plus present simple and present simple. Or, if plus any present tense and any present tense. So here, you can define if you aren't wearing a seatbelt. Zero conditional, it's always true. Okay, now you guys needed to put the verb in the correct form. So these sentences here, they're a combination of the second conditional and the third conditional. So let's have a look at the first one here. Juliana wouldn't have moved abroad if to find a job here. So verb is be able. Now this situation, it's a hypothetical situation, but it's not about the future, it's about the past. So this is our third conditional. Juliana wouldn't have moved abroad if, so in the third conditional we use if plus our past perfect. So remember, our past perfect is had plus the past participle. If she had been able, so sorry guys, it should have the word she written here, so we need our subject after if. So if she had been able to find a job here, third conditional. Now number two, if you, where you were going, you wouldn't have fallen over. So once again, it's a hypothetical situation about the past, so we need our third conditional, if plus past perfect. If you had looked, or in this case, had been looking, and the past perfect continuous, both are totally fine in this situation. Number three, if I wouldn't lend money to your friends. I wouldn't lend money. Okay, so what we have here is actually the second conditional, but we're using it to give advice to another person. And when we use the second conditional in this way, we always say if I were you, not if I was you. So the correct answer here is if I were you, I wouldn't lend money to your friends. It's a second conditional, but it's being used to give advice to someone. If you, for a discount in the shop, they might have given you one. So this, once more, is our third conditional, hypothetical situation in the past. You didn't ask for a discount, so you didn't get one, but if you had asked, you might have gotten one, or they might have given you one. Third conditional. And finally, I, Joe, to help me if he hadn't been so busy. Okay, so what do you think here? He hadn't been. I would have asked. Once again, it's the third conditional, hypothetical situation in the past. Alright, really good so far, guys. Next up, we have our used to, be used to, and get used to. So again, these structures can cause a lot of confusion and the difference between them. So let's see how you guys did here. So you needed to complete each sentence with used to, be used to, or get used to, and the correct form of the verb. So Lucy has been a bartender all her life. So she, okay, so this is a situation she's comfortable with. So we're going to use our be used to structure here. She is used to, and with be used to, the verb must be in the gerund form. So she is used to working at night, a situation that is comfortable or familiar to her. Number two, when James started his new job, he couldn't. Okay, so James, he started a new job. It's a new situation for him. He couldn't become comfortable, become familiar with this situation. So we're going to use our get used to structure here. But our verb is get up. So he couldn't get used to getting up. Alright, really good. So again, get used to plus the gerund. In this case, it's a phrasal verb, to get up, to leave the bed. Number three, Simon used to work every day, but now he has retired. He, okay, so not have. So this time we want a negative. So how do we put used to in the negative? Well, he isn't used to having. So it's our be used to form. But in the negative, we just make the verb be negative. He isn't, she isn't, they aren't. plus used to plus verb with ing. Alright. But slowly he is getting used to it. He's becoming more comfortable with the situation. Number 4. I've never worn glasses before, but now I'll have to. Okay, so it's a new situation. We know we need to. We'll have to become comfortable with it. So I'll have to get used to wearing them. Excellent. And finally, number 5. When I was a kid, I'm all day playing football. So here we've got a situation happened regularly in the past, but it's no longer true. So we're just going to use our used to plus infinitive structure. When I was a kid, I used to spend all day playing football. Okay, now the final part of the test was based on our teaching workshops. So we've got some statements here. Your job was to decide if each statement is true or false. So let's have a look at the first one. Authentic materials can only be used with higher level classes. So hopefully you guys remember our workshop where we talked about using authentic materials in class and some of the benefits of this. So even though many people believe authentic materials can only be used with higher levels, it's not actually true. So this is false. Authentic materials, they can be used with all levels, but it's most beneficial when we keep the material, we keep the authentic material the same, but we just adapt the task. Okay, so adapt the task, not the text. So if you've got an article, for example, you could make the task simpler for a lower level. Maybe you're reading for gist task. What is the author's opinion? Okay, rather than they need to scan the text and answer more difficult questions. So simplify the task, not the text. And also with lower levels, we can use different types of authentic materials. So comic book strips, for example, can be really good. Short cartoons, it's another good example. Anything particularly visual can be great for lower levels. Alright, number 2, it's better to try and answer a student's question even if you're not completely sure of the correct answer. So this, once again, is false. So again, teachers, unfortunately, we don't know everything. There are occasionally some questions we will be asked that we don't have, we're not 100% sure of the answer. So in these situations, it's actually better to accept that you're not entirely sure, but you'll get back to them, or you'll do it in a future class. If you attempt to answer it and you give the class some inaccurate information, it's very possible that they could eventually lose confidence in the teacher. And when a class loses confidence in the teacher, it can be very difficult to regain that confidence, to get it back. 3. Young learners should be encouraged, not forced, to showcase their talents. So this one is true. With a class of young learners, teenagers, it can be a great way to get them more engaged, or even just improve the rapport in the room or the atmosphere. If you can find out they have a particular talent or a skill or an interest, and you can encourage them to talk about it or share it. Now again, encourage, don't force. So if you've got a great singer in the class but they're very shy, don't ask them to sing a song in front of everyone. You can give them the opportunity, but don't put too much pressure. It can be a dream come true for some people, but a worst nightmare for others. Number 4, if our students don't understand a particular concept, we should explain it again in the same way as before. So even though it's true, we should always be patient with our students, with our learners. It's better not to repeat the explanation in exactly the same way as before, because if they didn't understand the explanation the first time, then giving them the same explanation again, it's unlikely to help them too much. So what you could do instead is provide some more examples, give them some scaffolding using, you know, leading questions. Even encourage the stronger students in the class to explain to the weaker ones, or you know, you could appeal to different learner styles. So if it's a language focus, you know, a grammar point, maybe using some timelines can really help, you know, for past simple, past perfect, for example. Or you know, you could appeal to some visual learners by using images. um, so again, be patient, but you know, don't repeat the explanation in exactly the same way as before. Try another approach. If our students don't understand, oh, it's false. And finally, we shouldn't ever skip activities in our classroom textbook. So this one is also false. Okay, so just because we're assigned the classroom textbook and the activities are printed, it's a published material, doesn't necessarily mean the activities are suitable for our particular learners. You know, many activities in textbooks, they can be adapted, changed, made more dynamic, or you know, skipped altogether if you don't think it will be beneficial or engaging for your class. So you know, as the teacher, it's really for us to determine what our learners' needs are and how best to, you know, facilitate that. Okay, guys, well done. Thank you very much for watching today, but also for watching and participating in all of our online classes. Uh, Congratulations also for completing this course. And just remember, guys, if there are any areas here that you feel you're not entirely sure, or you may need a recap or quick review, all the videos are available on the Erin YouTube channel in the playlist. So feel free to go back and check them out. As always, guys, any feedback, any comments, please share. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys again soon. Cheers.